Today we're going to use creativity, logic, and facts to see if we can improve human interactions. Now, if you haven't watched my last video on cognitive dissonance, pause this video and go watch it. It will be very important to understanding the rest of this video as well as all my videos. Firstly, we're going to look at the word offended. Offended. Resentful or annoyed, typically as a result of a perceived insult. Now, if you remember from my last video, we talked about how our perceptions, are not always the truth. You think you saw a ghost or a boogeyman, but really it was just a shrub or an oddly shaped tree. This is a fundamental part of understanding your own perception of reality and understanding what that reality is. It doesn't matter if a ghost visited you in the night and gave you a back rub and cooked you some cookies. It doesn't mean it's actually real. You could be in the Matrix right now, powering some robot's lawnmower machine. I know. The same thing could be true of all the things that I think are facts, that are real and verifiable. Well, at least if I'm living in the Matrix, other people are verifying these facts. So at least we know how this Matrix graphic card is using physics. Even if it is fake physics, it's the physics that operates the world that we're in. It's something. Now, if a bunch of scientists saw the ghost come to you and give you a back rub and cook the cookies, we would have more evidence. And if we could get that ghost to come back whenever we wanted to, then it would be repeatable too. There's a lot of elements that we have to factor in with the scientific method. Now you could say, why are we valuing these things? We're just showing preferential treatment over those elements of the scientific method. They get results. The iPhone that you might be using, the computer that you're using to watch this, the camera that I'm recording this on, all of it is from the scientific method. So, in our current state of affairs, the political landscape that we see ourselves in, there's this pushback from people in the country not wanting to be so politically correct. Where is this coming from? Are they just stuck in the past, or is there any validity to this? Similar to communism, being politically correct looks good on paper. There has been a huge lack in equality in many areas of our lives in the history of minorities and disadvantaged people, and it's been long and riddled with sadness and hatred. But slowly and surely, things have gotten a bit better over time. There are still people harboring hatred in their minds, but at least in most areas of the United States, it has become taboo to verbalize it. If someone slips up and says something narrow-minded or offensive, people who heard it would let them know it was offensive. It is a public shaming that has made people scared to voice their minds. Now, I know what you might be thinking in your head. So what? If they're hatred-filled people saying dumb crap, why should we let them say it? Well, the problem is this. The hatred never went away for a lot of these people. We didn't actually solve the problem, we just sent it underground, and now it has adapted and changed. My hypothesis is this. I think there is less hatred for minorities and disadvantaged people themselves, but instead a building dislike of the level of shaming over perceived insults. Maybe it isn't hatred, but just a poor choice of words. Maybe there just isn't a good English word for what they're trying to say, or they don't know it. Or maybe they feel their freedoms are being taken away. They aren't mad at the actual group of people for who they are, but the fact that the group of people is telling them what is allowed to be said verbally. A lack of freedom of speech. This is what could be sending them back to disliking those groups and adding to their exaggerated perception of those stereotypes. It's a terrible cycle, and one that can be broken. To illustrate this, I'll give you an example. What if there was someone that feels like they don't identify as a male or a female? They don't want to be addressed as he or she, but instead they. Those feelings are theirs and are valid. We can't decide as a country or people to force them to change their mind on that matter. It's not possible or moral. However, they couldn't possibly expect that everyone addresses them as they when no one knows that request beforehand. And even if they did, they might get upset if they slip up after they've told them that one time. But is that realistic? That's not how the English language works. It's not something that we're ingrained with from childhood and how to use the word they to talk about one person. So this is an easy recipe to be constantly offended all the time because you want people to address you or to talk to you in a certain way, and they don't. Maybe it's malicious, maybe it's not, but that's kind of forcing you to react to how they act. What if we added a word? Maybe the word fee, F-E. It's short, it makes sense, and the first time somebody that you haven't met before calls you a she or a he when you prefer to be known as they, you can explain to them, I prefer fee. I'm neither he nor she. And also let that person know that if they slip up and mess up, that you're not going to get upset. This is a brand new idea to them. And maybe they'd be more open to this idea, and maybe slowly over time as a society we could change to it. The key is to not be offended and to act offended, because then they just are afraid of walking on eggshells constantly and making sure that they don't accidentally make somebody upset. You could always ask your friends to call you that, and of course they're going to care about you and they want to address you in the way that you want to be addressed. That's what friends are for. But we're talking about strangers. Now, if I say something that makes you emotionally upset, like maybe I just did, and you get so upset that you shoot me, whose fault is that? Is that my fault or your fault? It's your fault, right? You're responsible for your own actions. Children learn this when they're a very young age, and those that don't become president. So why should you be such a slave to your emotions? We can't be held accountable for other people's emotions. Why? Simply because while trying to not upset one person, in doing so, I upset somebody else. I look one person in the eyes when I'm talking to them, and they appreciate it. But the next person gets creeped out by that. So what should I do? Ask every single person I talk to where I should look? No, because I'd probably be offended by that too. You get the point. So what's the solution? The solution is tolerance. Tolerance. The ability or willingness to tolerate something. In particular, the essence of opinions or behaviors that one does not necessarily agree with. Tolerance is the key to world peace, harmonious homes, workplaces, and public areas. If you always assume positive intent from someone, even if what they said sounded hateful, then you wouldn't get so upset. Maybe they are hurt on the inside and they're just lashing out for no other reason. If they are maliciously trying to upset you, but you don't get upset, then the joke's on them. They didn't achieve what they were trying to do to you. You disarmed them. In the same way that you deal with bullies. If a bully says dumb crap, don't shame him, don't fight him, don't argue with him. Instead, ignore him. And all he will do is lose the desire to do or say anything else. Donald Trump feeds off of the hate he gets. The best thing to do is not have him in the news at all. Stop making up fake news, stop reporting the crazy real news, and let him wallow in his quietness. It's ironic. He is president right now, not because of the Russians or whatever, but because of all the silent people who were sick of walking on eggshells, who quietly voted for him. I'll link a video in the description of Donald Trump driving this idea home. It's a very awkward acknowledgement of this idea, but people reacted to it in a positive way. They don't even know how to talk about this topic because of the subtlety involved and being afraid that it's going to be construed as much more hateful than it really is. They ate up his words because it resonated with them, with the feelings that they have. It's something they've been thinking about for a long time and don't know how to feel about it. And he verbalized what they were thinking. We aren't trying to hurt people. It just happens. Our choice is how to react to those situations that you find yourselves in. You are ultimately responsible for your actions. If you have to act on every emotional whim you feel, it's like being a slave to your own emotions. Dominate them. It's way easier to control your emotions than it is to get everybody in the world to talk the way you want them to. Never worry about offending a stranger, and try your best to not get offended by strangers. As your friends and your loved ones in your life talk to you, it's your choice to be around them too, and how to ask them to maybe address you in different ways or talk to you in different ways. Maybe they don't respond, and then you have to choose to either not be bothered by that or not be around that person anymore. The point is, you have control of how you feel and who you're around. When you're talking to strangers, give them the benefit of the doubt, and you're the winner for it. You have control over your life and how you feel.